Today I will be presenting on the effects of blended learning on student engagement and achievement. My name is Jane Zimmer. The research question that I looked at was, what is the effect of blended learning environments or online classes on student achievement and engagement, particularly in the elementary classroom? This is an area of interest for me because I am a fifth grade teacher. I am a language arts and social studies teacher at an urban elementary school. And in my classroom, we have just recently this year one-to-one devices in several different district-sponsored programs, as well as new curriculums that we are working on with our students. Our 4th through 6th graders have started a new program, and this program has allowed us to use technology in ways that we haven't really been able to use it before. It allows students to take a lead of their own learning. So I wanted to look at, okay, what does it look like to have a blended learning classroom or an online classroom, and how does that really affect student achievement? And then also, are the students more engaged in their learning when they're using a blended learning format, or does it have the opposite effect of make them uninterested in their learning? I'll be looking at the different ways that technology has been used in the classroom, most specifically the blended learning classroom, as I said before. And I find that students are more engaged when they have a variety of different methods used. So these articles that I've looked at are exploring those different ways. First thing that I looked up and I researched was, what is the blended learning model and how is it used? So the first article that I looked at, the blended learning for early learners, was a school in Kentucky that uses technology for its youngest students, K through 3, specifically in this article, and how that technology is used in the classroom. The blended learning models that are commonly used in middle school and high school are not used as much in elementary school. The model that is used most overwhelmingly popular in the elementary school is the use of rotations and individualizing instruction. So teachers would group students in intentional groups, and then they would move them through rotations, and one or two of the rotations would be an online program or activity for students to do that would give that blended element. In this article, the teachers found that students were more engaged because the learning took the form of games and were interactive for the students. The data that was collected from the use of one of the online programs and lessons allowed teachers to get a better sense of where the students actually were. So they were using the data that was given to students, that was provided to them from what the students were working on, and allowed them to group them differently, to meet them where they needed, to be retaught, to have more focus on. The one thing that this article talked about was that this type of learning requires a shift for teachers. So it's a paradigm shift, it's a teaching methods shift, that a different way for teachers to teach and a different way for students to learn. And the application for this one was just basically that I am in a 5th grade classroom, and this certainly applies to where my students are at. The next article that I looked at looked specifically at what is blended learning versus online learning. And the graphic that I have here kind of discusses what specifically blended learning is. It talks about the human interaction, and then it talks about the technology and blending those two together. So the human gives that motivation, the personalization, the feedback, but the technology, the mobility, the tracking and control, the reduced cost, the global reach of the learning that's taking place. In this article, it compared the online learning and the blended learning. It addresses and defines learning, as well as giving how effective it is and the availability of it. Both of these options for learning are becoming more personalized for teachers, for students, and it allows teachers to take a step back and allow the kids to take on that ownership. Now, kids that are in early elementary, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, that's not going to be as powerful as the students that are in 4th and 5th grade as far as taking the lead on their own learning. This study looked specifically at online versus blended learning formats. it said that the effective implementation is what is key to it. So if you're not implementing it in an effective way and with fidelity, then you're not going to see the results that you're looking for. Now, the next thing that I looked at is, what do teachers think of these online learning classes, opportunities? What do they think of the blended learning? Is it effective? What is it doing? And in this article, blended instruction takes on many forms. Looked at the District of Columbia Public Schools. And in the District of Columbia Public Schools, they made a shift between a teacher-led instructions and online lessons through laptops, and they primarily used the rotation model of rotating students through stations. They had over 40,000 kids, K through 12 students that were involved. They used blended tools such as Discovery Education Textbooks, First in Math, iReady, Lexia, Courseware, ST Math, and Teach to One Math. So there's a lot of different programs and software that they used. The blended learning, they said, allowed them to target smaller groups of students for specifically designed instructions, which is something that not every teacher gets even the opportunity to be able to do in the classroom, sometimes when you have 25 to 30 students. The application of this was that, their school district goals aligned with this blended learning. So because the district was moving towards the technology and moving towards the blended learning, they were able to really facilitate this for their students. The next article that I looked at was more specifically of one program, which was the Accelerated Reader Program, and they use this in a blended learning environment where students would read a book and then they would take quizzes and take reading lessons through a program called Accelerated Reader. Now, this is a program that's been around for a while. The article that I found of the research is pretty recent. It's 2015. It was titled Computer Assisted Learning in Elementary Reading. And this, like I said, looked at the effectiveness of that Accelerated Reader Program. And the results were that it was had a significantly positive impact on the students when it was used with fidelity, which it was used as on an average of 4.89 days per week, so pretty close to 5 days a week. And it was used as a regular program inside the classroom. It makes a great addition to the curriculum. We can apply it in as little or as much as we want to. And I just felt this article was really interesting in that it gave a perspective of one particular program and how that one particular program was successful. The next article that I looked at was Blended Learning for All, and this was an exploration of a blended learning approach to reading instruction for low socioeconomical status students, specifically in the early elementary. So the benefits of this approach on the students that came from a lower socioeconomic status in grades 1 and 2 were actually really great. So in this study, it looked at 47 students in a treatment group and then 41 students that were in a control group. And they both used, both the treatment and control classrooms used the LEAD 21 as the ELA curriculum. So the treatment group also used the Core 5, which includes online program with teacher-led Lexia lessons. So the treatment group used teacher-led Lexia lessons as well as the blended learning programs. The control group just used a select blended learning program. The students that received the treatment showed significant gains in their reading comprehension. 83% of the students advanced to the next grade level of material, and 17 advanced more than one grade level of material. So this just goes to show that even with students that have low socioeconomic status, this programming and the blended learning is benefiting even them. And so throughout all of this research, my conclusion is definitely that this blended learning and online learning is beneficial to students. It's increasing their engagement because it's something different. They're learning through games, things that they're already playing with and doing, they're now able to add learning to it. It's also showing that the achievement of students is increasing. So my follow-up question is, how can I apply this information to my classroom? I think a huge part of it is your district being supportive, your building being supportive of this learning format, but also just using it yourself.